In 1896, a French philosopher named Henri Bergson published a revolutionary work that changed how we understand the relationship between consciousness and time. His ideas seem more relevant today than ever before, because we're living through exactly the kind of temporal crisis he warned us about. Bergson made a crucial distinction that we've almost entirely forgotten: the difference between clock time and live time, what he called durée, or duration. Clock time is what your phone measures: mechanical, divisible, countable. But live time is something else entirely. It's the flowing, qualitative experience of consciousness itself. Today, I want to explore how Bergson's ideas might help us understand what we're losing in our world of instant gratification and perpetual distraction. Let's start with something you've probably experienced: the strange impatience that has crept into your life. When a web page takes more than 3 seconds to load, you feel genuinely frustrated. When someone doesn't text you back within hours, you worry something is wrong. You consume information at speeds that would have been incomprehensible to previous generations, yet you feel like you have less time than ever. Here's what Bergson would say about this: you're confusing two entirely different kinds of time. Durée, lived time, emerges from natural biological rhythms: the beating of your heart, the flow of your breath, the cycles of sleep and waking, the gradual maturation of thoughts and feelings. When consciousness develops within these organic rhythms, it maintains connection to what Bergson called pure duration, the flowing synthesis of experience that makes consciousness possible. But when your consciousness is shaped by the response times of machines rather than the organic unfolding of life, something fundamental changes. You're not just impatient, you're developing a different kind of consciousness altogether. Think about children growing up today. Their entire formation as conscious beings is happening within temporally compressed environments. They expect immediate responses, instant gratification, natural delays, waiting for food to cook, walking somewhere instead of driving, sitting quietly without stimulation. Cause genuine distress. Bergson would see this as more than bad habits. He'd see it as a threat to the very structure of human consciousness. Because consciousness isn't something that happens to exist in time. Consciousness is temporal existence. It's the creative synthesis of past, present, and future into a living unity. Now let's talk about memory. Bergson showed that memory is not passive storage. It's active, creative reconstruction. Each time you remember something, you recreate it in dialogue with your present circumstances. But today, we have perfect digital memory. Every text message, every photo, every search query is permanently archived. Here's Bergson's insight: this isn't memory at all. It's mere recording, storage, mechanical reproduction. You've probably noticed this yourself. You have thousands of photos documenting years of experiences, but when you try to recall specific events, you think in terms of what photos you took rather than what you actually experienced. People at concerts hold up phones to record rather than simply being present to the music. Bergson would say that when consciousness divides its attention between experiencing and documenting, it cannot fully inhabit the temporal flow necessary for rich memory formation. This matters because, for Bergson, the self is temporal synthesis. You are not a static entity, but a dynamic process of integrating past experience with present circumstances to create new possibilities. This connects directly to our attention crisis: constant notifications, switching between apps, consuming information. In brief, disconnected bursts. Researchers call this continuous partial attention, and it represents what Bergson would consider violence against the natural temporal structure of consciousness. Attention, for Bergson, requires temporal gathering, the ability to collect consciousness into focused engagement with reality. This gathering takes time and cannot be rushed. When attention becomes fragmented, consciousness loses its capacity for the deep temporal engagement necessary for genuine understanding, creative insight, and meaningful relationship with reality. Here's what concerns Bergson most: an entire generation is developing their cognitive and attentional capacities within this fragmented environment. The capacity for sustained attention isn't just a skill, it's the foundation for the deepest human experiences: creative insight, empathetic connection, the self-reflection that allows genuine self-development. Now we come to perhaps the most challenging question: artificial intelligence. We have AI systems that can process language and generate sophisticated responses in milliseconds. They respond immediately without the natural pauses, hesitations, and temporal rhythms that characterize human thought. What would Bergson say about this? He'd say it's not understanding at all, at least not in any sense that relates to conscious experience. Understanding requires temporal synthesis, the gradual integration of new information with existing knowledge through a process that necessarily unfolds in time. When a system produces responses instantaneously, it's performing rapid pattern matching. But this is fundamentally different from the temporal process through which genuine understanding emerges in consciousness. Here's where this becomes practically urgent. We're integrating AI into education and work in ways that might be outsourcing the very cognitive processes that develop our capacity for deep thought. If students rely on AI to analyze texts and solve problems, what happens to their capacity for sustained intellectual effort? Bergson would distinguish between productive struggle and unproductive confusion. Productive struggle has a particular temporal quality. Consciousness is actively engaged, making connections, experiencing the gradual emergence of understanding. This kind of struggle should be preserved, not eliminated. The danger isn't using AI tools. It's becoming dependent on them for the kinds of thinking that can only develop through sustained temporal effort. Ideas that emerge through your own temporal struggle become integrated into consciousness in a way that shapes who you are. So what do we do with all this? How do we live wisely in a world that seems designed to undermine everything Bergson taught us about temporal experience? First, recognize what's at stake. This isn't just about personal productivity or digital wellness. It's about the future of human consciousness itself. The temporal environments we create shape what kinds of conscious beings we become. Second, develop temporal wisdom. Not every task requires deep temporal engagement. The key is discrimination, knowing which temporal approach is appropriate to each situation, and having the courage to claim the time necessary for deep thinking when it truly matters. Third, create protected spaces for slow thinking. Even within a rapidly moving world, you need refuges where consciousness can recover its natural rhythms. This might mean daily periods of sustained attention, regular practices that cultivate temporal patience, or environments deliberately designed to support rather than fragment attention. What gives Bergson hope, and what should give us hope, is that consciousness itself persists. Despite all technological disruption, human beings continue to seek meaning, to crave deeper connection, to hunger for temporal experiences that cannot be artificially provided. People still fall in love, still create art, still seek wisdom, still yearn for experiences that unfold in their own natural time. This suggests that the deepest temporal needs of consciousness are not eliminable, but only temporarily suppressed. Here's Bergson's deepest insight. Consciousness is not something that happens to exist in time. Consciousness is temporal existence. You are not a being who exists in time, but a temporal being whose existence is constituted by the creative synthesis of past, present, and future. This cannot be mechanized, accelerated, or optimized without being fundamentally altered. The future of human consciousness depends on maintaining connection to this temporal source. In an age of acceleration, perhaps our greatest act of resistance is simply learning how to be fully present to the temporal gift of conscious existence itself. Not to reject the modern world, but to inhabit it with the kind of temporal wisdom that preserves what makes us most deeply human.